Hello, friends. This is Dorie Clark, and I'm here with our weekly Newsweek interview show, Better. And this week's guest is Dr. Beverly Kaye. She's the author of numerous books, including Love It, Don't Leave It, Up is Not the Only Way, and Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go. She is going to cover the entire career experience, but today we're going to be talking about managing your career during the Great Resignation. Bev, it's so wonderful to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. It's nice to be here. It's a decent time in the day for me. So great.
We aim to please, absolutely. And we'd like to say hello to all the great friends tuning in from around the world, some of whom are tuning in even at indecent times for them. And we are grateful to that. So please feel free to type into the chat box and let us know who you are and where you are tuning in from. Pakistan had a very strong showing last week, so I'm expecting you to keep it up, but maybe somewhere else is in contention. So we want to see and hear from you. So Bev K, my first question for you. We have been going through over the past couple of years with the mishigas of the pandemic, the so-called Great Resignation. All of a sudden, there's turnover, there's much more mobility than we've experienced in many years. You wrote a book called Love It, Don't Leave It, talking about people's jobs. And so I'm curious, my first question for you, if someone is at a position, maybe they're a little happy, a little bit dissatisfied, but they're trying to figure out what to do. How would you guide them? Is this the time that people should be making a change in their career? Your book says, love it, don't leave it. So, how do we do that? And how do we think about what would be the right move for us in this moment?
Right. Good question. And when we wrote Love It, Don't Leave It, before that, we wrote Love Them or Lose Them to managers. And it, boom, hit the jackpot. So we thought, wow, it would hit a triple jackpot if we write that to employees. And interestingly enough, it didn't hit the big jackpot. And I think because companies were the buyers, and I think companies said, we don't want to arm our employees with more pushback and more questions. I think now, thank heaven, the tide has turned. And if employees have ever pushed back, they're pushing back now. And I think a savvy leader manager will open their arms and heart to hearing that. And the reason that book was titled Love It, Don't Leave It, and I still believe it, is before you jump ship, think about what's going on right where you are and can it be made better? The big thing that I should jump on the bandwagon of is not only the great resignation, but the great regret, because those leaving are sorry. This isn't what I thought it would be. I want back in. And I'm telling managers, you better leave the door open and the key under the mat because boomeranging is happening.
That's a really interesting point. Thank you. We're here with Dr. Beverly Kaye. She's the author of numerous books, including Love It, Don't Leave It. We want to say hi to some of our great friends tuning in to our Newsweek interview show, Better, from around the world. We have a friend who is writing to us in Cyrillic, which I don't actually read. I'm so sorry, but we're so happy to have you here, friend from Russia or other Cyrillic country. We have Cheryl from Minneapolis, Shashidara from Houston, Anna in New Hampshire. We have Mohsin joining us from Pakistan. Yes, we have Arabi here. We have Carolyn from Michigan. Jennifer's in London. Rebecca from sunny Chicagoland. My friend Bernhard is here from Munich. Diana's from South Carolina. Pratyusha's in India. We have Brianna from Knoxville. We have Christina joining. We have Rashmi from Germany. We've got Mozgan from Iran and Rita Marie from Ireland. We love having all of you. Welcome to our show, and thank you for being here. You can type your questions about your career and how to manage it during the Great Resignation for Dr. Beverly Kaye into the chat box. Now, Bev, I'm curious if someone is, sort of evaluating their opportunities. You're talking about, the regret that people might feel about leaving their job. That often you're seeing people kind of want to come back because they feel like maybe they acted prematurely or made a mistake. How do you actually balance it? How do you weigh the scales? And how would you advise someone to say, all right, if you're doing the cost benefit of analysis, this means you should definitely leave. This company is a non-starter. You don't have a good future here. Versus, maybe you should be working on things, or maybe it's actually better to stay. Like, what would be the triggers to help somebody make that decision in a smart way?
You know, it's interesting. It might be your happiness factor. If you wake up in the morning and you don't look forward to another day, that's a hint that maybe you should rethink. However, before you leave, I would say check what you're saying goodbye to. In one of those books, I said there's four kinds of equity that you're leaving behind that we don't think about. One is social equity that you built, the pals you have in your organization. Number two is influence equity that you built, like you know who to go to get what you want in your organization. Three would even be skill equity. Yes, you're a great IT person right where you are. When you move, those skills will be deployed differently. And lastly, financial equity. Yes, you're getting X, and the salary in that other choice is Y. But what other money, what other things are you leaving on the table? So, what I'm saying to everybody thinking about leaving is the greener grass might be astroturf. So, check it out.
Really excellent points. We're here with Dr. Beverly Kaye. You can check out her work at bevkaye.com. And if you're enjoying this conversation, hit the like button, hit the share button so that your friends can benefit from it as well. And we want to say hi to some of our great friends tuning in from all over the world. Alicia is here again from Oakland. Welcome. We have Dominic from Italy. Siricom is here from Boston. Jeff from Chicago. We've got Laura in Estonia. Andre's in the UK. Zulima's here again from Mexico. Salisu is here from Niger. Tarek from Dubai. This is great. Kaveh is here from Turkey. And our past guest, Salima Garani, is here from Palo Alto. Thanks for the loyalty, Salima. And I hope that all of you have gotten to check out the video with Salima, which we did about how to create and fundraise from scratch $1 million startup. A startup that has raised $1 million from scratch. So we're so glad to have all of you here. And a great question came in, Bev, from Rebecca in Chicago. And she says, I'm seeing a lot of news on LinkedIn saying that job changers are increasing their income rapidly, while those who stay are stagnant. They're getting penalized essentially for staying at their jobs. What are your thoughts on that during this time of inflation? What do you think?
Rebecca, it's all happening, and it's happening in the pluses and the minuses. And yes, people are jumping ship for more money, and companies are fighting for you. And so, of course, they're going to offer more dollars, but dollars don't make the perfect wedding. Before you marry that new company, think about whether or not, it really is for you. Check it out in every way you can. In people I've talked to, in the end, the dollar doesn't make the enjoyment factor, the passion factor, etc. It's who I work for, what I do, who my colleagues are. So I'd say think about the surround sound around that. What else are you getting and what are you giving up?
Excellent points. We're here with Dr. Beverly Kaye, and this is Dorie Clark for Newsweek with our weekly interview show, Better. Max is joining from France. We've got Christy from Texas. We have Syed from Pakistan. We have Bonnie from San Francisco, Clara from Paraguay, and Samantha is from Rocky Mountain, USA. That's great. We are so glad to have all of you, and we're taking your questions about managing your career during the Great Resignation. Type them into the chat box. We'd love to hear them. Now, Bev, a question that I have for you. One of your books that you've written is called "Up is Not the Only Way: Rethinking Career Mobility." Now, I hear from a lot of clients that bring me in to speak that that this is a major issue, a major concern, that a lot of employees still sort of have a template in their heads that, okay, I'll just kind of, do my thing and then I will be moved up as though on an escalator in my career. And for a lot of companies, this is really not the case. That's not how it works anymore. But the employees have not necessarily been clued into this fact. And so there's a real disconnect. Can you talk about what you mean by this and how we should be thinking and responding to that?
Absolutely. And I would say that up was never the only way. And it was never the only way for everybody. And I can say it out of 40 years of singing that refrain from mountaintops. Now companies are saying internal career mobility. Here's a very quick way that I wrote about in the 80s. Think leverage, think career leverage, and think of the word lever with two R's. The choices you have are lateral, enrichment, grow where you are, vertical, absolutely, exploratory, a short term gig, realignment, going back to something you loved more. And it happens a lot for tech people who say yes to a management job and then realize it's not for me. Realignment has to be an option. And then the last is relocation. If it's not right after you think through all those other possibilities, okay, look around. But think leverage. The more leverage you have, the more choices you have, the less you'll walk into a wall.
I love that. Thank you. We're here with Dr. Beverly Kaye, and this is Dorie Clark. If you want to make sure you never miss one of our weekly Newsweek interview shows, all you need to do is go to dorieclark.com. That is my website. You can sign up, get a free self-assessment. You will join our email list, and you'll get reminders about these great conversations about things like today's topic, managing your career during the Great Resignation. We want to say hi because Lamas is joining us from Kuwait. Haley is here from Texas. Aziz from Lagos. Pauline from Santa Fe, and Demario from Detroit, and Tracy from New Jersey. We love having all of you, and we are especially grateful because our friend Trisha from Canada has a great question, and she wants to know, Bev, at this point, are we going to see employers who don't offer hybrid and remote options be left behind by those who recognize it is a must-have? How do you feel about that in terms of how companies can remain competitive and what is table stakes anymore?
Right. And you have a great point, Tricia. It is going to be hard for organizations who say no to hybrid. I wrote an article recently called Hybrid Organizations Need Hybrid Managers. So your manager is going to have to be flexible, more flexible than ever. In fact, I have this to remind me, Gumby, you've got to be flexible. And I think that that it's going to be very hard to keep people without giving them choices. And the S on the end of that word is critical. So any leaders out there listening, think about how to keep in touch with your remote employees and how to check in with them. And employees, how do you check in more regularly with your leaders and with your colleagues?
I love that. That's great. Thank you, Bev Kaye. And we're talking about how to manage your career during the Great Resignation. Please feel free to type your questions into the chat box about how to be a better leader, what you should be thinking about and doing in your career, etc. We want to say hi to Paula from San Francisco. We've got a LinkedIn friend from New Jersey. Santiago's in Argentina. We've got another LinkedIn friend from Santa Clara. We have Anupama from British Columbia. Hilton is here from Brazil. Ratha from Cambodia. And Cynthia in the heat wave of LA. Love having all of you here. And a question, Bev, that I have for you. If you are an employee that, let's say you're a thoughtful person, you want to keep growing, you want to keep developing and building your skills, how can you actually approach your managers or your leaders and get the help that you need in supporting growth? This might feel complex or not easy, especially if you're working from remote or a hybrid situation. What are the ways that employees can actually get the help and support they need to be their best selves?
Here's one step. One step is compile a list of what you love doing on your current job and what turns you off, what you procrastinate about, what you push to the bottom of your to-do list. And sit back and look at it and say, have I shared any of this? Because you can't walk in to your manager and say, what's my next career move? Your manager, number one, loathes that kind of question because they can't answer it. But number two, you have to do your homework. In the career work I do in organizations, I use something called the 3S model. Employee is the spark. They knock on their manager's door. The manager, the S word, is support, not answer machine. And the organization provides the systems and the structures. So I would say before you walk in, do your own thinking about what you love doing, what turns you on, what you're good at. And here's one more question. Think about what skill do you have that your leader is not using? Can you offer that up? I don't think we think that way. So try it.
That's a great tip. We're here with Dr. Beverly Kaye, and this is Dorie Clark with our weekly Newsweek interview show, Better. We want to say hi to some of our amazing friends. Gerhard is here from San Jose, Celeste from South Africa, Zeke's in Texas, Fatma's in Oman, Faustino in France, Edom in Chicago, Leonore is in Ohio, Felice from Turkey, Mylene is in Boston. We love having all of you here, and some great questions are coming in. Alicia wants to know, Bev, to follow on about this question. You say, up is not the only way, but she is curious. She says, how do you recommend overcoming the conditioning that tells us that up is the best direction to go in our career? How do we avoid feeling bad about it if we're not, sort of, every 2 years, look, like an elevator?
Alicia, I hope things are changing. I wrote the first edition of Up in 1982 based on my doctoral research. And, I think now it is changing because I think individuals are saying, I don't want that. And I know myself enough to know that is not for me. So whenever I work in organizations and I talk about choices, I say around vertical, what's the upside and what is the downside? Have you asked people who took that upward move and were sorry they did? Maybe, Alicia, do some of that interviewing yourself and ask people, what did you get into that you were sorry you got into because you went up? The ladder, ladders are still there, but there are not enough rungs to go around for everybody. So let's get real and say, how else can I grow? Let's talk about growing. And up is only one way to grow.
Excellent point. Thank you, Dr. Beverly Kaye. And we want to say hi to amazing friends. We love our viewers here. We've got Scott from Utah. Juan is here from Folsom, California. We've got Michelle in El Salvador, Kate in Pennsylvania, Simon's in Austria. We have Ihuaku from Houston. Masood is in Karachi. We love having all of you. And just to follow on, because you're getting a lot of traction around this, Bev. People are very curious. Haley has a question. I think it's a tall question, so I may not keep it up for the full time because otherwise we'll be you'll just be seeing our eyeballs here. But what Haley wants to know, which I think a lot of people can relate to, is if you're a middle manager or a senior manager, how do you continue to grow in your career when there's so many middle managers but so few director positions? She says, I enjoy the balance I have right now. I enjoy the time with my kids, but I want to continue to grow and not lose momentum in my career. So you've made a great case that up is not the only way. But let's say you've thought about it and you're like, yeah, up is not the only way, but it's the way for me. So what do we need to do if we want to keep pushing forward?
Right. And I want to say, think, don't think about growth as leaving what you're currently doing. The biggest missing link when I talked about career leverage is the first E for enrichment, and that is grow right where you are. Say to yourself, here's the question, say to yourself, what could I learn and get better at that if I gain that expertise, it would not only grow me where I am, make me stand out more where I am, but grow me for these future possibilities. That's where you need to spend time. And if you could answer that question, if you can, ask pals, ask friends, what should I be learning now that I could use now? And boy, could I use later. I'd say try that.
Excellent advice. Thank you, Dr. Beverly Kaye. You can learn more about her work at bevkaye.com. And a great question came in from our friend Anna in New Hampshire, Bev, and she wants to know, what can managers do to stop employees from leaving when their needs and wants are just higher than what a company can give? How would you begin to reconcile this? I mean, you're the author of a great book, Love Them or Lose Them. What's your perspective?
Right. Number one, I think managers, if a great employee comes to you and says, I'm leaving, I think you have to make the exit elegant. And I think you have to say, I hate to lose you. You are a great employee. You could try saying, what could I do to keep you? That question, by the way, is the topic of one of the books on stay interviews. So when do managers say, what can I do to keep you? It's not the exit interview. You need to ask that sooner. I should have trademarked that word when I first came. Anyway, so number one, you really want to say, what else is there? I forgot the question now. I got off on stay. Ask it again.
No, this is great. What can managers do to stop employees from leaving when the employee's needs and wants are just more
Right.
than what the company can do?
I was talking about elegant exits, and I think you have to say, keep in touch with me. I support you. I'm sorry to lose you. What about that? Instead of, oh, but we'll give you this much more money. If somebody really wants to go, let them, but let them know how precious they were to you. When I did my research for Love 'em, we followed people into the next company that they went to with their exit interview in hand. And we said, you said on your exit interview ABC. What didn't you say? And they said, my boss was a jerk and I couldn't stand it anymore. And so we wrote about jerk bosses. But the big thing I heard was, I never knew that I was valued. Yeah, we had a performance session, but I never felt valued. So maybe it is that subject of managers. Are you showing people that they are individuals and that you care about them and you see the skills they're bringing to you?
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Beverly Kaye. And if you're enjoying this conversation, hit the like button and the share button so that your friends can benefit from the conversation as well. Peter is joining us from Amsterdam. We have a LinkedIn friend from Toronto. Maurizio is in Seattle. Touche, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is in Istanbul. Brenda's in Puerto Rico. Rabia is in India. Allison in Sacramento. Marla's tuning in from Tampa, and Olawale from Nigeria. We love having all of you. And Trisha is actually back with another great question, Bev. This is hot these days. She wants to know your take on sabbaticals. She said, what would you advise in terms of the value of a sabbatical as a way of to take a different type of step forward, and maybe it helps the employee and the employer? What's your perspective on the sabbatical question, Bev?
Trisha, I love your question. That should be my next book, How to Make Sabbaticals Generic for Everybody.
Love it.
And maybe, here's one idea, maybe the sabbatical is 1 week. Maybe it's saying, take a week of learning. Wherever you want to go to learn, take it. I give it to you. It doesn't have to be 6 months. It doesn't have to be a month. But a sabbatical learning week could be, or 3 days, could be something that a manager can give. And I think that's a gift. And it's maybe an easy gift to give, because learning is everything. And we know learning fuels us. It keeps us on fire. In one of the books, I say, when the passion goes, so do they. So if there's any way to build passion, for me, it's always through learning. When I'm in a funk, I know the best thing for me to do is go somewhere to learn. That's for me, and for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, that's really excellent. I love that. I wouldn't call this a sabbatical week for me exactly, as evidenced by the fact that I'm here. But it's been a slow week. I deliberately carved this last week of August out as a slow week. So I've been doing a ton of reading. It's been very restorative. So
Good. Good
love
for
that.
you. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you, Bev, and thank you, Trisha, for the question. This is great. So yes, sabbaticals can be your next book, and then the one after that, we got just a little viewer feedback here. Bev, Alicia says, "I love the phrase elegant exit." I do too. If you wrote a book called The Elegant Exit, I think that would be pretty
Right.
baller. So
I'm
think about
writing
that.
this. I'm writing this down,
We
Alicia.
strive to add value.
I did write a little article on that.
Oh, but I think it needs to be a
Probably,
book. This could be a big thing.
yeah, book. Oy.
I know. Is it? You need that like a hole in the head, right?
Yeah, right. But
Well,
elegant exits, I will use more. Thank you.
it is a very nice phrase. We probably have time for one more question, and this is a great one that came in from Marla. She's expressing something that probably all of us have felt at one time or another, Bev, and we're wondering if you can help, shine a light on this. She says, "What can you do when you feel stuck and you're just unsure about your next move, or you're unsure where your skills fit? We're just in this period of." Not knowing, not being sure. How do we take the next step and begin to get some clarity in that situation?
I'm gonna I'm gonna answer you, Marla, in one word. And the word has a Jersey twang because I'm from New Jersey originally. The one word would be talk. Talk to your friends. Form a little group, maybe 3 or 4 of your friends. Call it a career club, and talk with each other about what you love doing, what you don't love doing, what you want to do more of, and get even your pals to listen to you and reflect back what they hear. I think that is a non scientific but good, make sense idea that we don't go to our friends enough and we don't do an exchange like, I'll listen to you for half an hour. You listen to me for half an hour about what I hate about my career conundrum, whatever it is. Because we can give great ideas to friends that we can't give to ourselves.
That is so true, and I want to double down on what you're saying, Bev. In my book, Reinventing You, I actually talk about a strategy of inviting friends together for a sort of focus group. And one of the questions that you can ask your friends is, if you didn't know what my career was, oh, look at that, we match. That's so nice. Thank you. I appreciate that. But you can ask your friends, if you didn't know what I did for a living, what would you guess? And that's an interesting question to kind of identify hidden talents or capabilities.
Yeah, I love that. I'll use that.
Awesome. Well, we have been here with Dr. Beverly Kaye. You can learn more about her work at bevkaye.com. She's the author of multiple books. You can get Up Is Not the Only Way. You can get Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go. You can get Love It, Don't Leave It. There are so many choices. Bev, we have been so glad to have you here today to join us.
Thank you. A pleasure. Fun.
Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in from around the world. We will see you next Thursday for our edition of Better Again. It's 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern, 5 o'clock in London. And until then, take care, everyone.